Yeah, I think so. Alternate Commissioner Coviello.
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Coles.
Present.
Alternate Commissioner Ma. Commissioner Santiago.
Here.
And Acting Chair Selka.
Here, let the record show that Joseph Coviello will sit in place of Chairman Hammersley. We have a quorum. Would you please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would you please remain standing for a moment of silence for our first responders and all of our military personnel in harm's way? Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the May 2nd meeting, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the May 2nd meeting.
I have a motion, the second.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes have been approved. Do we have any commission reports?
The regulation review, so Dave's informed me in the next couple of weeks, we'll be getting a few more sections of the regs from Planometrics. And so sometime in June, we'll have some more info to pass along to the full commission. Once the subcommittee has our chance to vet it, we'll get you more stuff. And then, is there any more after that, Dave? I think that's almost the end of it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the special regulations like the West Street Business Zone and the MUT, just kind of a general glance if you want to
Right.
eventually do a wholesale review of those. But
Yeah.
for now, with the bulk of it will be covered.
Will be covered, and then we could have our discussion about now what?
Right.
You know, about public hearings or information sessions, or, and like I said, in the information that we've given you thus far, if you have things that you think we should take up or not do, or just leave it, we could have that discussion and let us know what you think of things like that. Because if you, as I said it before, in the margins are, does the commission want to do it or not, or save it for another time, and whatever we want to do is fine. So, and then it'll be up for public debate, and then we could have our, how we want to move forward throughout the year, right? But there's no rush in it. That's all,
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Just a comment, I was fortunate enough to be invited to the 50th anniversary of the Land Trust and Conservation that was held Saturday night at, over in Mount Southington. And after the meal, we had a presentation by a doctoral student who attended Amherst and is now currently attending Yale University for his PhD. And unbeknownst to a lot of people there, especially to me, he did a complete survey of Southington, geologically wise. And one of the things of note is that Southington has one of the most unique geological areas, if you will, in the United States, and that's at Roaring Brook. I'm sure Christine knows all about this.
The great anomaly.
You got it. Which I thought was very interesting. This goes all the way back to prior to the Jurassic period, which was, I think, what, 200 million years ago, and before, when this was actually created. So it's owned by the trust, so if you ever get a chance to get out there, it is rather unique to Southington from a total nation perspective, which I thought was kind of neat. And also, our esteemed Mr. LaValle received a plaque for his contribution to the Land Trust and all the support over the years. So I think we're
Very good.
Okay, before we open up, I'd like to read a brief preamble for the meeting. Good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Southington Planning and Zoning Commission. My name is Robert Selka, Vice Chairman of the Commission, and I'd like to take a few moments to explain the meeting format. Aside from the administrative items, tonight's meeting is comprised of two parts, the public hearing and the business meeting. During the public hearing, the applicant will present the application to us in detail, which will allow the commission members and the public the opportunity to better understand what is being proposed. The commission members may ask questions during the presentation if needed. Then we will ask members of the public who support and/or who oppose the application. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized by the chair. Once recognized, come forward to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Please address all comments directly to the chair and not to the applicant or other members of the public. Be advised that this is your opportunity to ask questions and make comments on the application, because once the public hearing is closed, no additional testimony from the public or the applicant will be permitted. It is important to maintain order and decorum at all times during the meeting. After everyone has had a full opportunity to speak, all questions have been answered, and all information had been received, we will decide whether it is appropriate to close the hearing. We will not consider voting on the application until the business meeting. During the business meeting, we will deliberate on the applications submitted to the commission and decide how to act on them. The commission may approve the application as submitted, approve it with stipulations, conditions, or modifications, table action for a future meeting, or, in some cases, deny the application. 4 affirmative votes of the commission are generally required to approve any application. If you have to leave before the meeting, before the decision is rendered, you may call the planning department, Dave Lavalley over there, tomorrow afternoon to get the results of tonight's meeting. Thank you. With that said, we'll open the public hearing. Item A, D&J Corporation Special Permit Application for a 32 by 28 detached garage, property located at 35 Sherry Drive, zoned R40, SPU 676. Will the applicant or his representative please state their name and address for the record, please?
Hello, my name is Scott Putnam with D&J Corporation. My address is 20 Sherry Drive, Southington, Connecticut.
Thank you.
We're here to propose a special permit application for a 32 by 27 detached garage at 35 Sherry Drive. We're going over the limit of, size of garages for Southington. I did receive a email, I apologize, I just got it today from Jim about a few stipulations. Those, I agree to, and that'll be taken care of. One question was the location. The location of the existing gutters for the existing home do go right through that area, and they discharge into the wooded area between the two properties. That was going to be maintained. That could be added to the storage of the facility of the proposed garage, if you feel it's necessary. I don't have the engineer look at it. I can, have the, Cratchit Jones is the engineer on record. I can have him do the due diligence of calculating the amount of storage area needed for that size procedure, and I could follow up with the board on, what's needed, and we'll do whatever is recommended by the engineer.
Okay, anything else?
No, if you have any questions, I'll.
Okay, do we have any questions of the applicant? Go ahead.
So I see the affidavit saying you have permission to talk tonight. Just for the record, purpose of the garage?
It's for the homeowner is here if you'd like to speak to him, if it's better, but he's got a few, he's got an antique truck and a classic car that he would prefer not to leave outside, so, and then he has his 2 daily vehicles, so the new garage is gonna be, 2 additional vehicles, his collector vehicles, and then,
Reason I ask is that we normally get an affidavit saying there's not gonna be a business there. So did we get that, or did we not get that? Usually we ask the applicant for a
Yep.
signed thing to say, I'm not gonna be operating a business
Yeah,
out of that thing.
yeah, I'm sure they'll be more than happy to do that, if you could add it to a stipulation.
Okay.
He
That-
can,
that's
he
a
can go on
normal
record
thing.
also, yeah, I'm sorry, when I pulled the application, she didn't, wasn't asked, I would be more than happy have done that.
Okay.
Would you like the homeowner to put it on record and then also get an
Well, I think
affidavit
that's
also?
that's usually something we get as
Yeah.
part of our
Yep,
packet,
Yep,
which is a signed piece of paper to say, I'm not operating a business, it's for
Yep.
personal use and that
Yep.
kind of a thing. So
Yep.
I think that's certainly something I would want to see
yeah,
if it gets to the point that we approve it, okay?
yeah, okay, perfect.
That's all I have at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions of the applicant? Go ahead, Christine.
I'm sorry, Steve is. I see the rendering,
Yep.
which looks quite nice.
Yes.
Does it match the current character of the house? I haven't done that sleuthing, but we tend to hope for the complement, for the sake of the neighborhood and, for our eyes. No, I'm just kidding. But, yeah, that's the question. Is it going to look like the rendering that we see here?
Yes, it's going to look like the rendering you see there. The home at 35 Sherry Drive is a traditional two-story colonial. So it's going to, the motif of the two are going to match. The siding is going to be all the same materials and specifications as the home. So it matches, it'll blend in nicely.
And to follow up to that, I see that there's a window here in the rendering, like in the central gable. Is it going to be 2 stories or 2 floors?
No,
Excuse
that's
me?
just to add to the aesthetics. It'll actually be a glazed over, it's just going to be attic up there.
Okay.
So it's just going to be a blacked out. So it's just to add to the ambiance of the exterior.
Is there going to be
Look
any
of it.
running water or bathroom
No,
kind of thing
no,
going on? Okay.
Yeah, I did bring a floor plan, which I know it didn't need it. If you'd like to, if the board would like to see, I did bring some copies of the floor plan.
I defer to the chair if you would like to see them. Commissioner Salka, would you like to see a rendering of the floor plan that he built?
That'd be helpful, yes.
Yeah.
I have a printed out.
I think we have something.
You-
Oh, I think we might have that in our packet.
that-
Yeah,
Oh, that, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
so
got it. Got it.
I'm all set then, Mr. Chair. That answered all of my questions.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Steve?
How many bays are on the existing home?
2 bays.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Any other questions to the applicant? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone here speaking in favor of this application? Anyone speaking in favor of this application? Anyone opposing this application? Okay, is there any reason to keep this application open? Okay. Motion to table, or motion to close it?
Yes.
Okay. This application is closed. Item B, I believe we received a request from the applicant that it's not ready for action. Is that correct?
I don't know.
So item B is, that's the second garage.
Item B is item C, is not.
I'm sorry. Item B, Eric and Kelly Carrier, special permit application for a 32 by 26 detached garage, property located at 38 Lavender Lane, zoned R80, SPU 677. Will the applicant please come forward, state their name and address for the record, please?
Good evening, Ron Wolf, professional engineer, representing the applicants, Eric and Kelly Carrier, who are with me here this evening. And subject property is located at 38 Lavender Lane, which is a new road off of Shuttle Meadow Road. It's part of a open space subdivision approved in 2022, and it was Lot 5. Situated in a R80 zone, has an area of 1.001 acres. And Eric and Kelly are requesting a special permit to construct a 26 by 32-foot detached garage at the south side of their property. The garage has an area of 832 square feet. We have received approvals from the Engineering and Health Department. I worked at a few last minor comments out with Jim Capone this afternoon, and I have a jump drive with me if anybody wants to see any of the documents, the site plan or the renderings or the building plans. Certainly put that in. Is this laptop ready to,
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Is that a different laptop? Did we make it?
It looks
happen?
different.
It does look different. Doesn't look like the other different.
Welcome to the next millennia.
I don't see any lights on there.
We have traditionally slow issues with our computer. You have to bear with our delay.
It was on. Yep. Should be a jump start drive.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it was fine. Might just take a minute. The guy on the truck said it
Oh,
was
this
fine.
light's on over here. On the side there. top of the site plan.
No, it's not a big deal, I guess.
Come on, Christine, you gotta help him out here.
Do you need me to come over there? I think you got it. I mean, if it's a power button, I can't do much
Yeah,
more
that's,
than
that's
press
really
the
what,
power
Wes,
button.
we always do a dry run and it's fine.
I had faith in this one. I guess not.
Does not give us a warm feeling for the rest of the agenda.
Yeah.
I got a paper copy of the site plan.
Your electricity running through.
That light should come on.
Here it is.
You ever see that Simpsons episode where they ran out of power and Bart Simpson did the thing with the blue on his head, got enough charge, and then hit the VCR so we could watch a tenth of a second of Itchy and Scratchy?
Yeah.
Oh,
Also, we don't have
Oh,
Office
good.
365.
I know. I just wanna get-
Can I use it? Is this the pointer for it?
Yeah. That's weird that it shuts. Maybe it was really low on a charge and this doesn't want to pick it up for whatever reason.
It shut off?
Yeah.
I'll get mine.
That has nothing to do with that.
Over here anymore.
Okay.
On the side, it was on the floor.
Yeah, it was fine. It's not, just doesn't. want to take-
Right here. You have all the slides.
I think so. But, this is gonna have to, if we want to see anything else, if we want to see that, he's gonna show us stuff, we kinda gotta have it work.
That we gotta see.
Yeah.
I think we have a rendition of that on
Yeah,
our-
is there
we
something-
we have that,
Is there,
and we have those
Well-
as well.
yeah, so while we're waiting for that, what do you want to tell us?
I'm just gonna say that the detached garage basically matches the second floor.
Yeah.
Power, there's no water or septic for that garage. We made some other notes here. And we have submitted an affidavit that it is for personal use, just basically for the storage of a couple of cars and
Okay, do we have any questions of the applicant? Yes.
Yeah, so, zoned R80. However, it was indeed changed to an open space subdivision, thereby increasing the density of this land. So now we're increasing the density again, basically. So, why wasn't this included in the plan that came to us 6 months ago? Or whenever this was
Yeah, I
approved?
think that's just.
So why wasn't this part of the site plan at that
Yeah,
time?
it wasn't the last time.
when,
Yeah, so we had a site plan that we approved.
for the subdivision.
Yeah, for the subdivision. So why wasn't this part of that?
Well, I don't think that whoever did the subdivision, see what each individual lot owner is gonna
So the carrier builder didn't know that a carrier person wasn't gonna have another garage, is what you're telling me?
No, the lots weren't sold at that time, and that group is a separate entity.
Separate entity? Okay,
We do, we meet all the zoning requirements.
Yep.
as far as lot coverage goes.
okay. Now, in regards though, a lot of times these things, we like it when you can't really see it. right? Like if it's set back, or there's enough foliage or whatever, and you can't really see stuff. This is pretty open over there.
It is.
And so this makes it, I mean, it's a pretty big structure next to an already big structure. So on the street, is this the last lot in the back, or is this, where does this sit on the street?
right-hand side, on the cul-de-sac, on the right-hand side. If you're driving-
Near the end or near the front, near Shuttle Meadow?
It's near the end,
Near the end?
all the way at the cul-de-sac on the right side.
On the right side near the end? Okay. That's all I have right now.
Okay.
The computer's just, Mr. Chairman, the computer's updating, so hopefully it will
Of course it
mirror
is.
the screen, but we'll see.
All right, so without the site plan in front of us, is there neighbors to the next, to the driveway? Are there neighbors on that side where your finger is?
The south is vacant, owned by the developer.
So there could be a home there?
Yes, there is a
Okay.
lot there.
Okay. Okay, and again, how many bays on the existing home?
2.
Okay. That's all I have, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think I'm just going to follow up on kind of the initial questioning about the open space subdivision plan in that, and I just want to make sure I have the right lot correct. So the rear lot, the largest lot in the development, that's not this one, correct? Okay. So that, the construction of additional, as Peter was saying, it does somewhat impact what the intent of this board was to approve development, subdivision, with these houses that were proposed to us, and now it kind of has changed the dynamic of that. We are all for trying to preserve more open space, and by the inclusion of this additional structure in the subdivision, it kind of goes against what we initially wanted to do. So I'm trying to, I guess, balance it in my mind, the desire of this board to work with the developer to allow them to build more housing, at the same time to preserve some open space, and now we're taking some open space away from something that we initially wanted to approve.
I mean, I didn't study the subdivision plans too much, but I do know that there was space around the development reserved as conservation easement, and also out by Shuttle Meadow Road. This lot has a conservation all the way along the back. It's about, I'm gonna say 20 or so wide. And then there's some other, that pretty much encompasses the whole subdivision, so. And it's for open space with that, during the subdivision approval process.
So you don't see that the addition of an extra structure of this size on that is impactful for the intent of what this board was trying to accomplish?
I wasn't present for the hearings that went along with the subdivision, but we're not encroaching into that easement area at all. We're, to be fair, the end of the turnaround for the driveway.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I could clear that up a little bit, possibly. I think if that, just as a planner, if the question of protecting open space beyond the open space requirement was up for conversation, typically you'd change the regulation for the required lot coverage to really reduce it. So right now, it's 20% lot coverage, and they're at 9% with the garage.
Gotcha.
Thank you for the
Got
clarification.
it, got it, okay.
I'm all set, Mr. Chair, thank you.
You're all set?
Thank you for.
Okay, are there any other questions to the applicant? Hearing none, is there anyone here speaking in favor of the application? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is anyone speaking in favor of this application? Anyone opposing
this application?
We did receive one letter, Mr. Chairman.
Say again?
We did receive one letter. I believe it's in your packet. I sent it out this afternoon. We got it late.
Okay,
Yeah, we got an email.
yeah. That's in the record?
Yes,
That'll be-
Mr. Chairman,
that'll be in
it
the record?
speaks mostly to the lot size requirements.
Oh, yeah, it's here.
I can read it.
Is it here?
if you want.
Yeah, it's there. If you
Could be
refresh your
posted on
screen,
there.
it's there now.
Yeah. It's dated today's date.
Yeah.
Okay, no other questions? Is there any reason to keep this application hearing open?
Yeah, is staff satisfied?
I was satisfied.
You all set? Okay. This application is closed.
Public hearings.
Public hearing is closed, sorry.
No, no, sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, item C is not ready for action at this point?
Correct. You can still hear, the applicant is here. We
Okay.
Allow him to do his presentation.
Okay.
But we don't have all our checklist.
Okay,
items.
item C, C6 LLC, special permit application for a child daycare facility, property located at 36 Queen Street, Zone B, SPU 678. Will the applicant or his representative please come forward and state their name and address for the record, please?
You had one the whole time?
I don't know that it'll share because it's a Mac, but my name is Matthew Pereira for 36 Queen Street for a special permit. I'm confused. Am I not scheduled for this? You guys just said that I wasn't on this list?
No, you are, whether it was ready for action or not.
Oh, okay. I apologize.
When
Scared
when
me.
it was actionable or
You
not.
scared me for a second.
No, no.
So I'm not really sure how to do this, but I believe, just giving you guys kind of a rundown of what the property is. It's a newly built by a different developer. I am just leasing it. We currently own a daycare about 200 yards away, less than a quarter of a mile away. My Little Rascals in the Titanium Plaza. That facility just doesn't fit our needs anymore, so we've been looking for quite some time, and we found this property very, very close to us. There's 3 buildings. We are gonna be the one on, from the site plan. If you guys have a copy of that,
Yep.
right? The one that is the opposite direction of the other 2 buildings, so it's set back over to the right from the road. Our daycare currently has 32 children as a max capacity. This new center will hold a capacity of 48 children. The square footage is 2,870 square feet. And I guess some of the big concerns would be, we do need a playground area. The playground area is gonna be set back. Again, I have a document that I submitted, I believe it was this afternoon. The playground is gonna be set back far away from the road. There is a slight drop-off towards the end of it. It currently is fenced right now. It's only a 4.5-foot fence. We have proposed to bring that up to, I believe, 6 feet. And that will enclose within the building. In that playground as well is 2 dry wells. Per OEC, the Department for Childcare, they do require us to have 8 inches of soft material, sand, dirt, something along those lines. And we plan to put either mulch or turf up above that. And that will be level with the dry well, the 2 that are in there. So we did propose to put some sort of safety feature so a child cannot pick it up. Not that I think they can, but just having a safety feature, whether we tack weld it or, I was talking to Jim, they do make kind of locks for that so that you can't open it up. So we will be doing that. As far as traffic, we are open from 7 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock at night. Most of our students, actually, by rule, our students must be in by 9:30 for them to attend that day. So most of our traffic in the morning is going to be from 7 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock or 9:30. With 36 students, we average, we have this like check-in, check-out list. So we see exactly what time a parent drops off a kid and exactly what time they pick it up. And currently, and I can only base this off of what we currently operate, there's usually a 2 to 7 minute gap in between anybody dropping off. At most, through the last, since January of the report that I ran, at most, you really see about 3 cars parked in the parking lot at the same exact time. So it's not like we have a rush of 48 students or 32 students dropping off all at the same time like they would at school. With the increase, we do expect to see a few more cars on that, and what we did is we dedicated in the front of the building, we dedicated drop-off, pickup and drop-off spots. So this way, a parent can pull right in, they're right up in front, they can drop their kids off. A drop-off usually takes 5 minutes tops. Parents will drop their kids off, they check them in, hand them over to a teacher, and, they're in and out. Give me one moment, please. Not necessarily in regards to me as leasing the building, but the owner of that property is widening the road, so there are only right turn coming out and then a dedicated left and right turn. So it's currently 2 lanes, and I believe it's going to 3 up to the light in front of, I don't think it's that bank right next to Stop and Shop. I can't recall the name. So coming in and out, this was already zoned for medical building. So even with our 42 students and with our drop-off and pickup check-in sheet, check-in report, I don't see that we're going to be adding an extravagant amount of traffic compared to what they would on a regular office building. And just so you guys know too, we have for staffing, just find it. So for 48 students, so if you guys allow us to go up to 48 students, which I might add that we will have to get a special permit, I believe, for anything above 25 students as well.
Yeah, it's a waiver, Mr. Chairman.
A waiver, yep. Thank you. So at 48 students, our average is about 80% capacity. I would say we're pretty high right now, we're about 35% of our students are brothers and sisters, so it's, they kind of come in together. But based off of that average, we say 25 to 30% are going to continue to be siblings, again, kind of reducing the traffic. And at 48 students, we will have 17 employees. 35% of them will be part-time as well, so they would be kind of an afternoon staff. We will have 10 staff from morning to anywhere between 2 and 4, or 2 and 5. We've taken care of the dumpster enclosures. On the site plan, you'll see lighting that has been proposed. We do not intend to do any outside storage as well. The play area and the entire facility is ADA compliant, and again, the play area is designed and size-wise based on OEC guidelines. And again, I think the dedicated spots for pickup and drop-off really eliminates a lot of traffic within the parking lot itself. And I think I covered it all.
Questions? Jen?
Can you just clarify again, at your current facility, what's the population of kids that you have?
32.
32, okay, thank you.
So, just one clarification for the record. And so the building is already built, correct?
Correct, there's actually 3 buildings. You guys have already approved that whole plan and
Right.
everything.
So the reason this is before us for special permit is what?
The use itself as a daycare.
Daycare.
Essentially.
So because it's a daycare, it's subject to special permit even though the building is already built.
Correct. Typically with that use, there would be your concerns about traffic or queuing or, the number of children, just to make sure it's a good fit for the site,
Right. And so our decision here is not whether a building gets built, it's already there.
the use.
It's whether this particular spot is appropriate for what this application is for. Is that
Correct.
fair?
Yes.
Okay. So-
Thank you for clarifying that, actually.
nope,
It's
that's
very,
fine.
very important.
Yeah. So, outside of the fact that you need more space, I get it. Outside of the fact that it's an approved use for a business zone, why is this spot, beginning at Queen Street, a really bad turn coming onto Queen Street, a hill and a cliff right behind you, appropriate for young children during the day?
Okay, I think I have great answers for that. Number one, our facility literally is less than a quarter of a mile away that we operate out of
Yep.
now. So being in close proximity to that is pretty detrimental to our business, making sure that we could stay where a parent doesn't have to travel further to stay with us. I have looked all over Southington. Me and Dave have been friends for 3 years now, trying to go through proper locations. I bought a piece of land thinking that it was going to be a perfect spot for our location, which is still sitting vacant as we speak. So we have really researched around, and having that new facility, it's a much open space. I have nothing but problems with my landlord, so it's another reason why I must leave. And it provides the needs for all of us and a safe environment for the kids. We're gonna be in our current situation right now, if anyone's familiar with the Titanium building, we're right next to it, and it's got another building over there, a bunch of buildings behind. We have this small parking lot that people are driving in and out, and we have a playground literally in a parking lot, fenced in. So if you compare our current property to this one, we're moving to the Taj Mahal. And it definitely makes us feel safer having, I understand that we do have that drop off there. It's fenced, it's little kids, they can't get over it, and we are proposing a higher fence so nothing can go over that. And again, that's put in, instead of our kids playing out in front, basically in a parking lot, they're off to the side, and essentially the only thing we have to worry about is that hill that would be fenced in.
Yeah. I mean, I understand your issue. I mean, I get that. But that doesn't really play into our decision. Our decision has to be, is this spot, is your use appropriate for that piece of land? Outside of what your need is. Like, I get your need. I get it. I mean, I empathize with it. But whether this particular spot is in keeping with the character of what's already there, and is this the more appropriate use of that piece of property? That's what we kind of have to wrestle with as part of a special permit.
Fair enough, fair
You know,
enough.
as part of the special permit. Is this particular spot appropriate for that use? Versus, as you said, well, when the owner came, he wanted medical offices, which is what was proposed to this body when it was approved in the first place. So, okay, I get it, medical offices, I get it. Now, we're said, let's put a daycare there. That's what we have to wrestle with about as a special permit. Because if somebody was gonna go in there for a medical office, they wouldn't even be here. Because, yeah, it's an office, have a nice day. That wouldn't come to planning and zoning. So you're coming to us appropriately because it's special. That's why we call it special permit. So is the use of this appropriate for that spot? That's what we have to say. And what you're saying is, that's what I'm trying to understand, outside of your business needs, which I understand and empathize, why is this particular spot, this piece of land, appropriate for what you need? Traffic pattern, drop-off site, and the use of it within the confines of the general area. So that's what we have. Because 200 yards down the road where you are in Titanium looks very different than it does 200 feet up the road where you are now. Even though the building's nicer, like, I give you the building's nicer. You know, I see the point that the building's nicer because it's brand new. Like, sure. You know, so, you know, we have to come up with, is this site appropriate?
Can I ask what would be inappropriate about it? I mean, number one, it's a brand-new lot that was actually just undeveloped. There is no big elaborate eye-absorbing thing that's gonna catch your eye and even know that it would be a daycare, especially with the playground being off to the side as well. And also with him having all three of those for rent currently, we are the first ones in there. So we're, in a way, we're gonna be kind of setting the precedence of what you guys expect within that new lot.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, go ahead.
So I do actually like this area, and for a daycare facility, and I think that it's, you know, it's definitely needed in the town of Southington. I would like to see more detail and like, I can't make heads or tails of the parking and drop-off circulation plans. I don't really know, you know, I can't see the way entrance and egress is gonna happen. And also,
show anything
how
as
would
the
the
plan.
change in use affect the initial traffic impact study and how would it deviate? I wanna see actual concrete numbers. We can make assumptions, but I wanna see the math.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, I guess even on the original site plan, there's a ton of lines and notes in there. Let me see if I can blow this up for you. I mean, I could try to direct you through that site plan, but I do understand there's quite a bit elevations and everything within that. And I could absolutely provide something for that. And when I did do the site plan, let me see the original one. Yeah, and even when I did the site plan, again,
We don't have one,
because
right?
it's focused on my parking lot, I don't have the entrance in there. But again, I would just say that the increase in traffic, number one, from where we are to here isn't a huge distance. So we're not gonna be adding any extra people on that road except for the extra 16 children. And then the other thing, I mean, it was already approved for people to come and, I would say, a good amount of people to come in and out of that entire facility. So when you guys did that site plan, I would imagine that that would have been kind of one of your guys' top priority, and I don't think that we're actually changing any of that.
Caleb, do you have a question?
Sure. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, so I've got a couple questions about the use itself. So the playground that you
You went
have,
first.
Sorry?
No, you're fine, sorry.
the playground, is there access to the playground directly from the building, or do you have to walk out onto the sidewalk?
No, correct. On the site plan, not the site plan, I have it, this one, can you see?
Yeah, no, I
That one?
think I can pull it up. It's the, like, you have an interior room schematic, which kind of applies to this, which we usually don't look inside a building, but for this particular use, I think it's appropriate. But I don't see a door. It looks like all the doors go to the sidewalk and nothing goes directly to the playground area.
From inside, you're asking?
Right.
Correct.
Correct. There is not a exit to the playground from the inside. It would come to the front, and as you see, it is, the sidewalk that currently is there will be extended directly into where the gate is.
Yep.
To get in there and keep it ADA compliant. But
Okay.
there would be no entrance or exit in and out of the playground from the house, or, from the daycare directly.
So
You'd
question
have to-
1B, based on your response to that. So the drop-off area is right in front of the door where people would the kids would have to walk out to go down to the playground area.
Correct.
What kind of curbing do you have or protections that you have, automobile stop barriers, just in case, God forbid, crazy things happen, so that nobody drives into, if somebody's pulling around fast and hits the gas instead of the brake, something to protect people, little people specifically, from getting hit. So that might be more of a bigger, like a site plan on how they built the whole thing out. I guess because it's ADA compliant, my concern is that there is no curbing between the vehicles,
Meaning like a Jersey barrier type.
not even a Jersey barrier, like, what's the appropriate?
Bollards.
A block, a bollard, or something like that to protect, because it might be a zero increase between the parking lot and the sidewalk.
Oh, no,
So we
there's
can
a
just-
step up. There is a step up.
And like a curbing?
And in front, you would have just like a regular parking. You
Block?
have them right out here, like a block, yeah, like you pull up forward to that.
Okay,
yeah.
so there is some safety feature there.
For sure, for sure. And the sidewalk is not level with the asphalt. You do step up, and you could actually see in the front, actually, you may not be able to see in the drawing, we actually have 2 ramps that are flat. One of them being right by where we have the handicapped. We purposely put the handicapped there so they could just roll right
So
up.
that's the handicap in your drawing is the handicap space, and then to the right is a striped area. That striped area is 0 depth.
Yeah,
It'll
on
go-
the sidewalk, yeah. So the sidewalk would come down like this and then back up.
Okay. So that's, okay.
So almost like a walkway, just no transition.
Okay, then the second part of that, access into the playground question, third part, I guess. So the sidewalk's going to extend to the entrance to the playground area. To Mr. Santago's first question about the grade drop-off at the rear of the property where the playground area is there any fencing or any other measure to stop them from falling down the hill?
Currently, there is a fence right now. It's only 4.5 feet tall.
That's going to go around the entire perimeter of the lot or just the playground area?
No, it comes all the way across this entire backside behind the other 2 buildings. All
Okay,
the way
so that's the
across
whole site?
The whole entire site.
Good,
correct.
okay. And is that the same fence that's being used as the barrier for the playground area? Or do you have something else architectural that you're gonna put in there?
No, from the corner of the building to where the current fence is, it would just come straight across with what's there. We will be changing that fence that's going across the whole property in that playground area to a higher
Gotcha.
height.
What kind of material are you gonna use for that?
Chain link is what we
Chain link
were-
plastic?
That's what we were thinking with the slats in between, so
Okay.
kids can't get their hands and whatnot in there.
Good. I'm sure OEC will have a lot to say about that.
Yeah, OEC is actually one of the biggest, I guess, the
They're-
toughest
they're
when it comes to
thorough.
the playground.
They're
yes.
thorough.
Playground, and then I'm sure I'm gonna have to come back in here for the entire fit out for the interior, and OEC is gonna have the biggest part of that, to be honest.
So the next part of that, and it's kind of like relates to OEC and what they would permit you to do. So your application now is for 42 students?
48.
48. If you were to break down each classroom so that you could, so you're going to have infant, toddler, and pre-K?
So what we have is we have infant to 18 months, and that can go, here, I actually have one that I could, man, your computer doesn't work.
A general answer to
All
the
right,
question
so-
is fine.
We have one room that will have 16 kids
Okay.
with a total of 4 teachers. We'll have another room that will have 8 kids with a total of 2 teachers, one room with 4 kids, 1 teacher, and then one big room with 20 kids, 2 teachers. So the 20 kids is going to be pre-K. Everything else is going to be under 3, so 2 and infants. We separate our infants from newborns to 18 months-ish, really depending on their mobility and when they're able to move up to a full 2-year-old when they're actually walking and playing at the same
Gotcha.
level.
So if you were to break down some of those rooms, which I've seen it before, where a facility will want to increase capacity for one particular age group by splitting a room in half. Is there any plan, I mean, we're maxed out at the 48?
There is
and-
0 square footage to add any more children than 48.
Okay,
0.
all right.
Based on OEC, you must be 35 square foot per child in each room. We actually have it set for 40 square foot per child because they take away a fridge or a bookshelf or counter spacing. They take that
Open floor
away.
space.
Has to be open floor space or a toy or bookcase that a child can open and
Yep.
close and use.
Final question. Done great so far. Is there food service here?
No,
No food service,
food
okay, so
service.
no deliveries or anything like that?
the girls for lunch.
Okay, fair enough. We're not gonna charge you for those. All right, thank you, I'm good, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Christina?
Thank you. So how many staff did you say you have total there?
With 48,
Correct.
with 48, we would go to a total of 17 employees.
So how many total parking spaces, not including, you mentioned you're the first to come into that lot, but I imagine that some of those parking spaces on the plan that you showed us on the westerly side would also be shared with that middle building there. So how many are you guaranteed, how many parking spaces are you guaranteed by the owner, for the record?
So technically, the entire parking lot would be open to all three buildings. It's going to be few and far between that someone's going to come all the way over here to walk a half a mile to the other side to go to that building. What we have proposed is everything in the front side of our building, the side, and then across the side there as well. Then you have, I wish I could like point this to you guys.
Me as well.
I don't know if you can see
No,
too,
that's
but right
okay.
here in the middle, I
It's all
think
right,
would
so-
be
We
more
have
mixed
that in
use.
front of us.
Because I'm gonna tell you, we do need to see per the engineering comments, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Grappone, that we have not received the circulation plan. Typically, that is something that we do like to see, since safety is something that we're considering in this. So the follow-up is going to be, approximately how far from that light are you from entering in, right?
Which like,
So
not
there's an
understanding.
intersection right there at Queen Street.
Flanders and
Yeah.
Queen Street.
How
Okay.
far is the entrance from that intersection, from that light?
Not far.
Yeah, I don't know how to guess, and it's not,
We can
it's not
surmise and say not that far, right?
Yeah, it's not
So you
that
said your
far away.
operating hours are what again?
7 to 6.
Okay. Understandably, you mentioned something about there being a third lane or what have you, but in order to access it, if you're going north on Route 10 and you need to cross over currently, we can't talk about what might be there in the future. I really wish we could sometimes, but unfortunately we cannot. So if I want to turn left at 7 o'clock in the morning, I would need to cross over those two current lanes in order to access this.
Correct, I think it's actually only one currently.
There's
but-
two lanes. There's a left-hand turn that you could take to go up Flanders, and then there's a lane where
So
you
you
go
would be
straight.
further up for our entrance than,
At the light.
than that one.
No, I know. That's what I'm talking about. The lane starts there. I'm on Google Maps right now. No, I got the receipts.
I
Let's
like
look at it. So
right.
there's the light is back there.
Yeah.
And then, you have to scooch a little bit. You're still crossing those two. It's actually, in my opinion, for the record, it's a little bit more dangerous because it's the beginning of that lane, of where the two lanes go for the light. So you're now going to be competing with oncoming southbound traffic on Route 10 that splits into two lanes with a possible left-hand turning lane. I'm just a little concerned about the queuing. So my recommendation, and queuing in this instance, to be specific, is how many cars are going to be waiting northbound to turn left at some of the busiest times of day, which is in the afternoon on Queen Street. I don't need to tell anyone in this room what that's like. So I'd love to see, like Commissioner Tedesco here to my right said, some sort of data that talks about, the traffic. I'd like to see the flow of the traffic in this property for safety concerns. And then just to circle back real quick on what Commissioner Santago said. When we approved this, we approved it for medical office buildings, which is stagnant mobility. It's you park your car, you go to see your doctor. This is going to be rotated mobility throughout this site, in addition to the already approved parking spaces for those stagnant vehicles, right? Now we're taking away some of that if we do move forward with this, because there's no guarantee on how many spots or a site plan that was included for this sort of business that would allow for that sort of circular traffic. We have to be considerate of the future businesses that would be in that, in those two other buildings, whether they're there right now or not. So my recommendation to you, sir, and to my fellow commissioners at this time would be, I'd really like to see that data, because that could be a tipping for me in order to understand better what this will look like, not today, not tomorrow, 50 years from now when all three businesses are thriving, because that's what I want to see. I want to see them all thriving, but safely. And then last question, not to take up too much time, we're talking about fencing, but like I'm totally confused. So you're using the fence that's already there as part of the enclosure of the playground?
Essentially, yes.
Have we thought about maybe double fencing so that there's a fence around the playground, keeping the children captive in one space? And then if they do happen to escape, or let's say while you're walking to that playground, you have a stray, you know, you have double security on the property, so you're double fencing is my suggestion. I'm not saying you have to modify anything at this time, but it would just be,
Can you clarify double fencing?
So
Meaning
you-
having
you
one fence and then
enclose-
another fence right next to it?
correct, like you have the enclosed playscape area, and then you have another fence right outside of that enclosed area as sort of a I don't know if I feel comfortable using that fence that's already there and heightening it, because then God forbid somebody got over that fence, there's nothing else to stop them from going off the drop-off, is that correct?
Correct, but we're also talking about 4-year-old kids.
I don't know, my kid at 4 could climb a jungle gym, she was like a little scraggly thing, so I don't know. That's just based off of my experience the day after Mother's Day, 2 days after Mother's Day. I would suggest further protection and not using the fence that's already there to protect the barrier, and that's just my opinion for the record.
So
That's
double
all.
fence adjacent to the one further, only the drop-off essentially.
Yeah, like keep the drop-off
I
fence.
see what you're
Let that
saying.
be the drop-off fence, you know what I'm
Yep.
saying? And then have that extra enclosure for the kiddos, you know, just in case, you know what I mean?
Yep, I can absolutely see that. And if I could
I'm all
just,
about keeping them enclosed.
us too. Just a couple things, you threw a lot at me right there, so forgive me
did.
if I don't address them all. When you're talking about circulation, are you talking about circulation within the property or getting into the property?
I want to see it all. I want to see how cars are going to be coming in, when they come in, where they're going. Are they parking? Are they dropping and staying in a continuous motion? I mean, a good example would be some of the other recent daycare facilities that have come before us. And looking at some of the data they showed us the second time around, or maybe, you know, of how that looks when you're pulling in and what that means, like what time of day, how many cars, accounting for your employees as well as your customers.
Correct.
Also would be helpful while you're at it to just show us signage. Is there going to be signage throughout the entire thing? Is that going to be confusing for the other two buildings that are medical office buildings? Like, are people going to understand this is my parking and this is daycare parking? Or are you going to have my grandma just like doing loops in the parking lot, not understanding? I want to see that signage as well.
Okay, so I don't think that we, other than to pick up drop-off, we didn't decide to dedicate posted signs there. That's absolutely, if you feel that, deem that necessary, that's something that we could go and do.
Sure.
As far as circulation within the property, and I apologize, I should have brought something more visual for you guys to see in and out. So I can absolutely grab that. But as far as getting in and out, with all due respect,
Sure.
I feel like that's a conversation that would have had to build this whole place.
We did.
At a certain point, I can't change that now that I'm going to lease someone else's building and saying, hey, now we're worried about if they could take a left in or if they could take a right in. I think they solved that by adding the lanes and one right turn only and whatever solution he came up with. So I'm just a little confused on how I could really, if that does become a big concern, one, how it falls down on me just trying to lease the building. I don't even own the property, and what else I could do to make that more clear for you
Well, I
guys,
think-
or make it better
Sure.
for you guys.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I was gonna follow up real quick and just say, you know, when we approved it, we did have that discussion. But we approved it for the use, and that's why you're here tonight. We're changing the use. So it's like a whole new conversation. I'm not saying that if I see that plan of circulation, I'm saying that actually might help your argument a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep,
I digress. Thank you, Mr. Redpaul.
thank you.
Thank you. Just, maybe this would clarify for the applicant and just continue on Commissioner Volpe's thoughts, is the original application had hired a traffic engineer. That traffic engineer took traffic counts in 2011. And it was for medical office use. This is a different use. And part of the engineering comments was the applicant should really consider updating the traffic report. This 48-child center is right on the fence as far as the 75 trips during the peak hour. It's not our responsibility to do the ITE calcs. It's very close to requiring a traffic study. So just to continue on and give you direction, I think what I'm hearing is that you need to update the counts, really should consider a traffic engineer as part of your application, and that might, put the commission members at ease.
I know that would be.
And that's because we're adding more than 75, or we're thinking that we're adding more than 75, or just
It's a
date and
different
numbers?
use.
Just different use
So in 2011,
altogether.
it was medical office.
Understood.
Different peaks. You just said there was, 7 to 6, but your main focus is
7 to 9,
9:30,
4 to 6.
which means that
Yeah.
the pickup is going to be 4:30 to 6. So
Correct.
again, you're in that peak hour generation of traffic.
Yeah, we tried to get the traffic study, it just, in time, I
The
couldn't get
traffic,
it for
the
here.
original traffic study is too old.
Too old, as we spoke, yep.
Okay, Steve?
I was gonna say more or less what Jim said. I was looking at the planning comments about the traffic study. I think a traffic study would immensely help
Absolutely.
the group here, as would something a little more visual, holding your computer up isn't. The traffic patterns, if it's up here, even if you're over there with your finger pointing.
It's not visual
It's
too,
helpful.
for sure.
It's very helpful, and, we want to see the business work, but again, the site was approved for a different use. You're here for a special permit, so we have
Understood.
to ask these questions, because we grant the special permit, it goes with the property, not just with your business,
I appreciate it, thank you.
all right? Thank you.
Yeah, just to add on to what most of the commissioners have said, and that is that I definitely want to see the traffic flow. It is being used as a daycare. That's your intent. And in looking at this little piece of those 3 buildings, it's very difficult to, number one, I can't even see on the drawing where you come off the main road into your parking lot. Never mind the drop-off where they're going to be backing up and cars coming in and kids getting out of the car going into the front of the building. I'd like to see, the arrows of what the traffic flow really is.
Absolutely.
Looking at the total site. And as Commissioner
just one
Volpe
building,
was
the whole
saying,
thing.
with traffic on Queen Street, I'd like to see the coming in, the going out, and the traffic study, which I think is vitally important because of the time of the morning and the time of the evening. I think it's critical for us to look at that.
Absolutely.
So when you come back, we really like to see that kind of detail, including, and I assume that you're going to have additional signage like for drop-off, which is unique to your location versus a medical office building. It's not going to be a drop-off. They're just going to have a handicap sign, which is fine. But you're going to have a drop-off, so you've got to identify to the
Directions.
people where that is. And so I would like to see, like you said, the traffic flow, the overall picture of the site itself, and the signage that you're going to use. I think that'll go a long way to helping us see really what's happening here.
Awesome, thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
One final thing is don't put this burden entirely on yourself. Go to the owner and, you don't have to be the sole person hiring the engineer, or if that's what you choose to do. It will likely be useful for them as well. And,
That's a very good point, actually.
yeah, so don't,
With 2 more
don't.
buildings,
Yeah. so
very,
that just
very
a-
good point. Thank you, actually, very much. And I did intend to get that updated, because Jim did warn me of that, Dave did warn me of that timing, I just couldn't get it, and, I wanted to get as far as I could, see where I was missing, and
There
go from
is a
there.
limit on when you have to come before us, and a limit on us for acting and
For sure.
so on and so forth.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions? Go ahead. I would suggest that we keep this public hearing open and let the applicant come back with, the kinds of things that we've asked for, and maybe even getting together with the town engineer and Dave and seeing if there's any additional information that they require. So you're not wasting your time coming back again and this board asking for more information.
For sure. Honestly, they kind of warned me on doing that. I didn't do a good job at depicting that, so they've been great helping, so.
We could do for and against.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, thank you. Is there anyone here speaking for this application? Anyone speaking for? Anyone opposing this application? Hearing none, we'll see you hopefully at the
guys.
next meeting. Yep. Thank you. I'm sorry, Dave?
During business meeting, no?
Yeah,
During the business meeting.
yep, yep.
God bless you, Dave.
Okay, basically, this closes the public hearings. Correct?
Yeah,
Okay, we'll move, I'm sorry?
yeah, business meeting.
We'll move on to the business meeting. The first item on the agenda in the business meeting is LePage Homes, Inc., subdivision application resubmission for a 13-lot subdivision, property located at 347, 349, 389 Marion Avenue, Zone R2025, plus an I-1, that's S1337.1. Will the applicant or his representative please state their name and address for the record, please?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission and staff. For the record, my name is Alan Bongiovanni. I'm a licensed land surveyor in the state of Connecticut. My office is at 170 Payne Road in Newington. With me is Jim Cassidy with Halsey, Pearson and Cassidy. He's our professional engineer on the project, and we're representing Bill LePage Homes in the application before you. The subject property is 10.9 acres of land off of Pine Street. It is both in the I-1 zone and the R2025 zone, and our request is to divide the R2025 portion of the property into 13 residential lots for single-family homes. I have another charger. It's not very good HP charger. Excuse me.
Never heard of that.
That'd be a first.
Good working.
Oh, God. Hey,
He did it.
look at that.
Another plaque for this man.
Hire him.
Thank you.
You want a job as an IT guy?
So the subject property, our road frontage is Pine Street. This is Marion Avenue, Diane Drive, and Pine Street. There is frontage to part of our land that comes out here on Marion Avenue. It's about 40 foot in width. It's not adequate for road frontage or width to accommodate a town road, but we will utilize that for utility services for the site. The property will be serviced by city sewer and city water. We have received a letter from the water department that water is available. We have some details to finalize on the plans per our conversations with the water department, and those will go before the water board next, the meeting later this month. I'm sorry, next month's meeting. Our proposal As I said, our proposal is to start at the terminus of the existing Pine Street, run a 900-foot road into a new intersection at what we're calling Penny Lane, which is terminated on the north and south by cul-de-sacs. and this road is approximately 900 feet in length. This allows for 13 lots, starting Lot 1 in this area, going around clockwise to 12 at the end of the cul-de-sac, the southern cul-de-sac, and then Lot 13 in this area. As part of this development, the developer is acquiring about 9/10 of an acre of land that will become our open space and will also serve as a detention area for our stormwater. The site has been before the Wetlands Commission, has been approved. There's a inland wetlands area to the north end of the site, and we've done our best, and we've been able to avoid any direct impacts to that area and have agreed to the conditions of that approval. The site has been designed so that we have a minimal amount of excess material on the site. We believe that with the material that we have here, we can basically balance the site. There may be 1,000 yards, 500 to 1,000 yards of excess material, but it's enabled us, the contour of the land has enabled us to work with it and not create a situation where we have excess or a need for borrow for this site. We are going to request, or we are requesting 2 waivers in this development. One is a partial waiver of the sidewalk requirements. Sidewalks are required in this type of subdivision on both sides of the road for the entire length of the road. And since we don't have any homes fronting the first 700 feet or so of road, it's open space conservation easement on the north. We have a detention area, a new open space in this area. No one would be there to maintain them. We don't know that it's practical in the long run to have sidewalks there. Plus, I believe we received comments along the same tone from the staff that the town really wouldn't want to maintain those sidewalks. It is Mr. LePage's request to waive the sidewalks in all of the areas except fronting the lots. So we'd start at Lot 12, go on the east side of the road, all the way around the northerly cul-de-sac, and come back to lot number 1 here and put sidewalk in that area. And again, if you have comments or a preference to that, we'd be happy to discuss that. The second waiver is the requirement of a subdivision in the I-12 zone would require construction to an I-12, to an industrial-style road. Wider pavement, heavier duty pavement, things like that. Because this is all our 2025 and the only remaining land will be this couple 100-foot section of property in the I-12, we're requesting that it's not really practical that this piece ever gets developed as a lot off this residential street for the I-12, for the I-1 zone. It is currently developed. If you look at the picture here, it currently has a building on it. We're going to basically take the unused portion of that land, but it's fully developed at this time. Their access is out to Marion Drive. We don't believe it would ever be a situation where a new lot could be created to access this proposed extension of the Pine Street. So we believe that building to those standards would not be appropriate for this development. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Jim Cassidy, so Jim can talk about the utilities, drainage, grading, E&S.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Jim Cassidy. I'm a professional engineer and principal with the firm of Halsey, Pearson & Cassidy, located at 630 Main Street in Cromwell, Connecticut. I'm working in conjunction with the Bon Giovanni Group doing the site engineering and stormwater management design as part of this project. Alan's already gone over the configuration of the road, but just to kind of circle back on the far upper portion, this is the end of Pine Street presently, so we are extending the new road into this intersection with a total length of about 947 feet. When you take a look, if you were to go out there today, you would find that the grade actually is pretty flat coming off of Pine Street, but then kind of comes up over a knoll. We're going to follow the topography of the existing topography for the road profile. In this area, the grade's actually sloping in a northerly direction down towards the wetlands that Alan had mentioned. We're going to basically follow that grade also, so you would slope down from a high point here at about a 1% grade to a low point here, and then it comes back up into the cul-de-sac. Stormwater management, we've taken a look at the soils out in this area. We've done several test pits. I actually took several soil samples and had permeability tests on it. We're finding it's a nice medium to coarse sand. And based upon the permeability tests we've had performed, we're finding we have a pretty high infiltration rate. So what we're proposing to do is to manage a lot of this stormwater off the site through infiltration, promoting groundwater recharge as part of the development. That's going to incur by two ways. Number one, each individual house is proposed to have a series of galleys, a small infiltration system where the roof leaders would be discharged to promote groundwater recharge for each individual house. The roadway system itself has a formal drainage system per town requirements. There'll be a series of catch basins within the roadway that will slope down to this low point. As Alan mentioned, this property over here, this small industrial portion of the property, this is actually a residential portion of the property, we're proposing to acquire. We're proposing to put a stormwater basement in it. Because of the type of soils, we're proposing an infiltration basin. So all the water will be actually conveyed to that basin. It's designed so about the bottom 3 feet of that basin will accumulate water anywhere up to about a 10-year storm event. Will not even discharge up to a 10-year storm event. Allow all that water to infiltrate back into the ground. Larger storm events on the northerly end of the basin, we have a concrete outlet structure. The outlet structure will have a rectangular weir in the face of it, which will allow it to build up against this structure and attenuate the flow out. Discharge from the outlet structure and actually heads back down Pine Street and then down through an easement on lot number 1, and eventually discharging to the wetlands to promote additional water going to the wetlands. We built an extensive stormwater model as part of this application. We were requested to run it 2 ways. Number 1, with the outlet structure fully functioning, but just in case there's any issues with the outlet structure, we were asked to run it with that outlet structure not in place. And what we found is basically because of the type of soil, you would find that the system would not overtop in any event all the way up to a 100-year storm event. So it's more than adequate for what we're proposing as part of this development. Other utilities, as Alan had mentioned, the project is going to be serviced by public sewers. Right now, there's a gravity sewer line in Marion Avenue. Because the grade of the roadway is sloping in a northerly direction away from Marion Avenue, what we're proposing to do is put each one of these houses on a low-pressure force main system, so each house would have an individual grinder pump. It would discharge from the grinder pump into a 2-inch high-density polyethylene pipe, which would continue all the way up into the cul-de-sac, then through an easement, and then eventually end in a manhole off to the gravity system in Marion Avenue. System would be a private system, it would not be a town system. So it would be the responsibility of the individual homeowners or the developer to maintain those individual pumps. In addition to, we're going to be bringing public water service in. We're proposing to extend the water main off of Marion Avenue all the way down the cul-de-sac, ending at the end of the cul-de-sac, providing individual water services to each one of these houses. As Alan also had mentioned, we've been really working with the grades on this to make sure that we can make this a balanced site, and based upon different earthwork models we have performed, we're finding that the cuts and fills should be pretty much balanced on this proposal. So we do not need any bar, or we do not need to get rid of any materials proposed with this site. Final item is erosion and sediment control. Again, it's a sandy material, so we don't have a high rate of erosion off the soils, but we are trying to incorporate as many measures as we can. Lot number 13 to start, this is presently one of the lower areas in the property. We're proposing to build a temporary sediment basin in that area. So during the construction process, all stormwater can be directed to that area and protected before it can discharge out to the adjoining wetlands area. In addition to, along the entire northerly side, we're looking at putting a staked hay bale, a staked silt fence, but it's backed up with like a silt tube or a silt sock along that northerly portion. So that's the area, the most sensitive area closest to the wetlands, and of course, Each of the catch basins as they're installed would have some kind of, what we call an impoundment or a sediment barrier around it to make sure we don't get any sediment into the overall system itself. I know that we've had several comments from engineering and from planning. I believe that we have the majority of addressed. There is some minor outstanding comments. So I think the only one that I had to deal with engineering-wise was design of the force main system. This is something that typically is going to happen as we work with the force main company or the pump company that's going to provide the pumps. So I did talk to Mr. Grappone about it earlier today. We'll be providing that information once this project is approved. We know who the actual vendor is, but this one, at this point, it looks like it's going to be what we call an E1 grinder pump as part of this project. So with that, I'm going to conclude my portion of the presentation. Alan, do you want to add anything else?
Thank you, Jim. It's a straight subdivision. We're working with your regulations. We think we've adhered to the regulations. We believe everything on this meets and/or exceeds your regulations from zoning perspective and the subdivision regulations, drainage, roadway design. We are asking for a partial waiver on the sidewalks, and we are asking for a waiver of the requirement to construct the extension of Pine Street to an industrial road because it's going to service primarily residential for the end of time because the only piece of industrial land left is already developed. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, go ahead, Tessa.
Cat.
Sorry, wrong one.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Flattered, though.
Cat.
So this is the sidewalk waiver. It's intended to be all of Pine Street, yes?
Yes.
So does that mean that it will exclude these two homes at the top of Pine Street? Will it cut straight on the end of Penny Lane?
So we were thinking of practicality, and your wisdom would play part in this if you have a recommendation. But we thought, fronting on Penny Lane, and then going around and terminating on this side. We don't want to put it along here because it belongs to a neighbor that's not part of the subdivision, and, his desire to maintain somebody else's sidewalk probably is going to be non-existent, just as all the sidewalk up in this area. If we were to extend it in this area, again, it's going to dead end somewhere. Personally, my experience in this type of development where you have a really captive environment, most people are going to use the road and probably won't use the sidewalk to begin with.
Okay. And one more question. The open space at the end of Pine towards the opening, that's merely just to preserve vegetation? Is it going to have any usability?
It won't have usability from a park-type setting. It's there as a drainage structure, water quality, and things like that.
Okay, thank you.
We also, I would like to add, in light of that, the back portion of this lot, all the wetlands and a budding area to that is being preserved in a conservation easement, and that was part of our inland wetlands approval.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair?
Steve?
My question is actually for Jim. In looking, I'm sorry, Dave. I'll get to you, Jim, next. I did notice in the planning comments versus the comments with responses that there seems to be disagreement in almost the top half of the list. So the no access, the road should be industrial, sidewalk waiver, right to flow, detention pond. Are you satisfied with the way that they responded to your comments?
Through the chair, I would say they'd have to justify their responses. I won't say I'm not comfortable with them, but they should certainly make you guys comfortable. We put a lot of thought into the comments, whether each one is, I would say they're practical, but each one is actionable. They may have something in their design that they could come back and say, well, we don't need this because, typically we do a deep dive into the subdivision. Each one's unique, even though we have a standard checklist. You'll see that there are some, as you pointed out, that are unique to this site. As far as the erosion control, I agree on that one, that, it's isolated enough that the end result is going to be a secured detention pond. They're gonna, I believe, hydroseed it and mat it. I think there's a 4-bay in it. So in terms of E&S, that's fine. It did come up about the industrial use, just because there could be an opportunity for them for that remaining industrial land that he pointed out, and there's also 2 more up above that are, I think they're currently homes, but it is industrial land up there now. So I just put it out there. It's something that I saw. And what were the other comments on that? The emergency vehicle access, you know, again, if it was appropriate, that's fine. If not, then there's still access through there from different points. You could probably drive up that easement. I don't think it's going to be wooded, but there would be access to it. So, I mean, the applicant or his representative may want to speak to that, to those points.
If I may, through the chair. Dave and I did have a short conversation about the access way. It is going to be utility easement, 30-foot wide. It is going to be maintained as a lawn area because they'll need to have access in case of an emergency for either the water or sewer service in that area. We thought long and hard about, you know, whether we should make any more improvement to that. Because it's not that far of a distance, we felt if we were to do anything more, such as a gravel or some sort of more stable surface, it may encourage traffic in an area we don't want to do. We don't think the amount of houses or the length of the roads or anything is, you know, warrants any type of emergency egress in that area. Again, it will be accessible, but I don't think we want to do any more improvement than that.
My next question is to Jim, because everyone on this board knows the sensitivity towards sidewalk waivers. I see in your comments that you're recommending a sidewalk waiver.
Especially adjacent to the town open space. Having an isolated sidewalk puts a burden on Public Works to maintain that sidewalk. We have other areas such as school access sidewalks we, you know, have to maintain. So those are long lineal distances, but to go to spotty areas of town would be pretty difficult.
No, I think it was helpful for the board to
Yeah.
hear from you
Yeah.
versus the applicant. That's the reason it is. And then the last thing I'd ask is I see the water availability letter has been received. However, the water board will not, their meeting on June 8th.
That's typical, I would say. Yeah, that means that they have enough volume, they could provide the water, but they just need to decide if it's appropriate to do so, which in most cases it is.
So do you consider this conforming and ready for action?
Just to continue on Dave's comment, we did receive an email from Eli that as far as valving, hydrants, and things of that nature, that they did address some comments. The applicant did address initial water department comments, and as Dave mentioned, until it's approved, it doesn't go to the water board. So staff did look at it on, as far as standards, and I think they addressed any deficiencies at that time, so it's just a matter of, so I think with respect to water, it's ready for action if everyone else feels it is.
You okay, Steve? Yes.
So could you go to the aerial view again, if you wouldn't mind? So as I look at that industrial property, the big building there, right there, yep, you bet. And it looks like adjacent to where your road is gonna be is a parking lot,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
So does the parking lot go out into your new road?
No.
Why not?
We're basically, because we don't need to, there's a strip of land if, I don't know if I can, I don't want to try and zoom in on it, but I'm gonna.
Yeah, sure.
There's about, I think it's just about 50 or so feet more than what we need for the road right away. On the property line, and
Yeah.
the property line, as shown on our plan, just skirts the pavement, so we don't have to take any of the pavement.
No, but that's not the basis of my question. The basis of my question is, could they not have a curb cut and go out into this new road?
They could. We don't think it's practical. We don't think it's probable. We would offer the commission a restriction. We would provide a non-access line, if you wish, to ensure that.
Because, here's why I'm saying it. So if you're asking for a waiver on the road because it's non-industrial, I understand that.
Yep.
However, if the industrial guy says, hey, I got another way out, so I want to cut through there, suddenly
Fair enough.
I got industrial people going through there.
Fair enough.
In a neighborhood that, well, we don't think they'll do it. Yeah, okay.
And that's why we would, again, in the same vein, we would stipulate to a condition that we make that a non-access
You know what I mean?
line. Yes.
You see my concern
Yep,
there?
Yep, no, and we were happy to protect the town.
So, that was one of my things. So you have feet, but people can just say, hey, I want to go do that, right?
It's there, they might want to use it.
Sure,
I get
right?
that.
Why wouldn't you? You got a parking lot? I want access. Now you just provided me 2 egress points versus just one to get out of that property,
Yep.
right? So the other is, if you'll make that a little bigger, if you would. Thank you for blowing it up. This is the best IT we've had.
I'm going to fail.
And I understand the open space and the sidewalk, but to that vein, if I did have children in there and they want to walk up to the end, now I don't have a sidewalk. So that's the other thing. I understand the maintaining part. And I appreciate staff's concern with that, but for the same token, the folks are not gonna be contained to that one little strip. If they're gonna walk out to the other area. And without a sidewalk, now I have a problem. So what we're trying, I guess, balance here is safety of anybody walking from where the houses are out to another street, balance that with, well, now the town has to maintain that.
Well,
Seems like that's the balance point.
understood. And again, this is a local residential road. It's a terminal neighborhood
Yeah.
without an access to another direction. The entire neighborhood of Pine Street and those properties to the west, that's a good example. Those are all streets without sidewalks. So if they want to walk, there's no sidewalks.
So there's nothing, so if they were to go out, there's nothing there either?
Exactly.
Okay.
They're, at some point, they're going to turn into a road. They're going to have to walk on the road.
Okay. All right, fair, thank you. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Because that was going to be my question, does Pine Street have
Yeah.
sidewalks?
Yeah,
And
right.
the answer to that is
Okay.
no.
Okay.
So it's a valid question.
I did do the research. Your regulations, I think, state something, if there's no sidewalks within 2,000 feet, you don't have to ask for the waiver. You're entitled to it, I think. I think we're probably 1,500 or 1,800 feet in any direction from this property
Yeah.
till you get to a sidewalk.
Okay, go ahead.
My point is also about sidewalks. There is a 4-acre park that just got updated on, I believe it's Union Street right by Pine. So I believe in a 13-unit subdivision, there will be children possibly traveling to that park. I don't think everyone that buys a unit will, be homebound. So I have reason to believe they will want to use a sidewalk. And I also want to ask, so I know that homeowners are, if it isn't on a school line, they're obligated to maintain the sidewalks themselves per a new town ordinance. Does the responsibility fall to the town specifically with the open space? And Jim, if you could just, explain that.
School access walks, if it's truly a school access walks, is maintained by the town. There's been school access walks where this used to be a school, and now it isn't, so there was some school access walks that reverted back to the property owner for maintenance and upkeep. So, but a true school access is maintained by the town.
Okay, and with this would likely fall as a school access.
No, this would be privately maintained by homeowners.
I think what was your other question through the chair, along open space, would that be the town's responsibility as well?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so the open space portions would be responsibility.
If it's
of-
town-maintained open space.
Okay, okay.
If it's privately owned, open space, we don't maintain.
So you could attach it to the lot and put a conservation easement on the last lot, and that lot would be responsible for all that land, they could own it,
Okay.
and then the town wouldn't have to.
Would that still meet the open space requirements
I don't know.
for area? I don't think so.
And are you including the detention pond as open space?
Yes.
Is that need, do you need that space to qualify?
We do need, I think it's a half acre of open space, yes.
Do you have any authority in our regs to count detention basin as open space?
I don't find anything contrary in your regulations.
Just, my understanding, Mr. Chairman, it'd have to be deemed appropriate for open space use. So, I mean, kids looking for frogs or something, is that open space? I don't know.
Should we look into that?
It's up to you.
Yes.
I think it's worth looking
I
into.
think it's worth looking into.
I think we have a consensus.
Right.
Look into it.
Okay, go ahead, Caleb.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, just correct me if I'm wrong, but the space that is, well, on the map here is to the north, but in reality, it's to the west of the parking lot. So the developer doesn't own that yet, correct?
I'm sorry?
That's not owned by the developer yet?
It will be, developer does not own any of the property yet.
Okay. So is there a contract for it? My concern is this, and I think you see where I'm going with this. If we get the first part, but we don't get the second part, then what does that leave us with regards to this whole project?
I don't follow you.
If you don't have the area where the detention pond is,
We have a contract, the client has a contract to purchase all the property we're representing in this development.
okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
any other questions? Just clear, I'm sorry.
No, so to the point of this, and I don't know if we made it, I probably should have said it at my very first thing. So I noticed this doesn't say special permit, it also doesn't say site plan. So what type of application is this, that it's in the business meeting and not the public? So is this an open space subdivision application?
No, it's a straight, as Mr. Bongiovanni said, it's a straight subdivision.
So it's a straight
No special
subdivision, so
requirements.
normally, wouldn't that just be a site plan or no?
Site plans are more for commercial. The
So just for
subdivision
commercial,
is
so this is
subdivision
just, they're within reg,
to create individual parcels.
gotcha,
Yeah.
so they're within reg technically. for this, so-
If your interpretation of the open space carries through, yes, it would
Then,
be.
and they are, so,
And there was a good, I wouldn't say argument, but the point was made that, is it recreational open space looking for, or
Okay.
generally open space that is private, but it's deeded as a conservation
Right.
easement? That's a good chunk of those lots.
right, so outside of the research on the open space stuff, and then the request for the road and the sidewalks, that's why we're here tonight. Basically, right?
Even without those, you need it as a subdivision of land.
As a subdivision, just
Yeah.
say, yeah, okay, I'm with it.
Correct.
Okay.
To make
I
sure
get
it meets the regulations.
All right, so, I certainly would prefer not rendering a decision on this tonight without an open space clarification, but that's me. I don't know what everybody else thinks. So I would rather, Mr. Chair, option to table this until we can get clarification on that.
Okay.
Just
Before you
to
make a-
add to Peter's point, I think that the open space and the sidewalk waiver go hand in hand, and I think it'll help us
I agree,
make decisions on everything.
I agree.
Before we make a motion, just to clarify, could you show the actual site plan and the road? Okay. The I-1 zone is the gray area, correct?
The I-1 zone, the zone line cuts across like this,
Oh, cuts across.
cuts across.
So it cuts across that road?
Yep.
Okay.
Lot number, this lot here, I think it's number 12, actually has a little bit of that lot in the I-12, I-1 zone. But
So you're actually cutting through the I zone?
Yes.
The I-1 zone?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Second question would be, if we required sidewalks, Dave, based on that schematic there, what would the town be responsible for? Obviously, the I-1 zone,
Yeah, Alan's probably got it right, that whole section there.
all the way through? Even though they own that property,
This, well, from
why
here,
would the town be responsible for that?
Depends who owns the open space.
Yeah, it depends.
I'm
on
sorry?
the side they put it on.
Depends who owns the open space. If the town has deeded the open space, they have to maintain the sidewalks.
And that's what we're gonna be researching.
But if one of the property owners owns the open space, the property owner would be responsible for it.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, if you can go to the layout, lot one has a pretty long tail on it. If you're sticking with sidewalks on this side, lot one, you can see goes all the way up there. So that frontage goes quite a ways up to about there. So if they do walks on that side, it would be all the way up to there. Right? So that would leave, can you just go down a little bit? We'd show what's left. That's gonna be private, so the town would do this little chunk there, I think, right? Or actually, that would be this property, their responsibility, which is off-site, and then the town wouldn't pick it back up. So, yeah, I guess the town would, if they did it on this side, and that went to the town, that would be the town's, but then that's private right there for these people, and that's for this lot there.
So we're not only, if we require sidewalks, we're burdening the town and we're burdening that homeowner. We're sort of blindsiding that homeowner with, who will not be happy.
Yeah, see that.
Okay,
Can you show on lot one, I guess it is now, you had that blown up? Because you said something that now I'm like, what? You said something that lot is partially industrial, it's residential partially
If you-
industrial. What's that mean?
if you look at the subdivision plan, so the zone line is an extension, I believe, of this property line. It
Okay.
goes across. The area below it in the R2025 exceeds the 22,500 square foot minimum requirement. Because we had that small triangular piece of property in the I
Yeah.
zone, we just included it with the lot.
Okay, yeah, you show me here. So, holy moly. So, great, so we sell it as a house. Got it. 5 years from now, they sell it. The new homeowner says, hey, I'm partially zoned industrial. I want to put a factory there.
Doesn't meet any of your bulk requirements. The industrial zone that they own is such a small piece of property, it doesn't meet any of your requirements.
Yeah, but I own the property and I am asking for a special permit to convert the second part of my lot from residential to industrial, and right there, suddenly I got a factory.
Well,
Or something.
I don't think that's actually the case. I don't think that's actually probable. But in light of that, I mean, we could also take that small triangular piece of
Yeah.
lot number one and deed that to the neighbor as we're going to do the other one.
It makes me nervous.
We don't want to do that. We don't want to make you
No,
nervous.
because you have unintended consequences, and like, I think the chair or Commissioner Walski said previously, on another one whereby,
We can put a conservation easement on it.
yeah, whereby, our decisions go with the property, not the initial owner. And so you may make a decision today, and it makes sense, but years from now, somebody may say, why the heck did they make that decision?
No,
And so,
understood. We can restrict that. We can
coming
conservation.
back, I would certainly be more comfortable not having a lot that's split residential, industrial.
I guess my
Or-
question is,
Or somehow making that
Understood.
to prevent the.
what gives, maybe speaking out of turn, but what gives the builder the authority to encroach on that I-1 zone? He doesn't own it.
He has it under contract. He has a legal document that allows him to pursue this application, and upon approval, he purchases it. As most applications that come before this commission, quite often, the applicant is not the owner of the property at the time.
Right, I get that. But it's the zone that is the zone is what's worrisome.
We can clean that up, that's easy.
Okay. Okay.
That would, Mr. Chairman, that would play into your sidewalk question again, if it is either transferred to that adjacent property owner. They'd have that much more sidewalk, I
Right.
mean.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we
Good
have a
good
motion?
discussion. So I move the table.
Second?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Thank you for your time.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Apologies, Chair Salka, for speaking out of turn a little bit there on the easement, but
Okay, item B, I believe that was that was a table?
Yes.
Move the table, SPR 1867.
Do I have a second?
second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Item B has been tabled. Item C, d and J Corporation Special Permit Application for 32 by 28 detached garage, property located at 35 Sherry Drive, zoned R40, SPU 676. What is your desire?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve SPU 676, sorry, dyslexia.
Okay, we have a motion. Dave?
Mr. Chairman, could we just amend that motion to include the stipulation that they work with the engineering department on the underground storage requirements?
Yes, I rescind my previous statement and make a amended motion of approval, SPU 676, with the proposed amendment that they work with the town engineering for the underground, yes, that, the underground, one more time? I didn't hear you, underground storage, I was thinking, yes, underground storage requirement. Hopefully that's on the record.
I'll second that, but I would ask Commissioner Volpe if she would also be willing to amend her motion so that we get the affidavit to say that a business will not be taking place in this structure, because it was missing from our packet.
Correct.
Sure, I rescind both previous motions to approve, and now I'm gonna really get this, though. I make a motion to approve SPU 676 with the stipulation that we receive an affidavit saying that there will not be a business of any kind, and also stating that the applicant will work with engineering for the sub-storage on the site. Is that correct? Phew.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all,
Call the roll.
Dave, call the roll.
Commissioner Tedesco?
Yes.
Commissioner Volpe?
Yes.
Commissioner Klock?
Yes.
Commissioner Walowski?
I'm sorry for a minute. Are we on C?
Yes.
All right. No.
Commissioner Coviello?
Yes.
Commissioner Santiago?
Yes.
And Acting Chair Salka?
Yes. Motion carries 6-1. Item D, Eric and Kelly Carrier, special permit application for 32 by 26 detached garage, property located at 38 Lavender Lane, zoned R80, SPU 677. I have a motion, please.
Before a motion, Mr. Chair, I'm wondering what other commissioners think about this, because this one, I've gone back and forth on in regards to the discussion that we've had during public hearing regarding the subdivision when zone was changed and other sort of discussion around that. So I'm wondering what other people's thoughts are about that.
I have a question. Dave, I believe you mentioned, does the chair recognize? Okay. I'm really formal tonight, sorry. Dave, I'm wondering, so is the 9% lot coverage, does that include the new the proposed detached garage?
As proposed, it does. yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, thanks.
Okay, well,
I'm nervous about increasing density in an area that's an NDDB zone, National Diversity Database, or NDDB zone or area, so, and, you know, we received a letter from from a person in town that showed, you know, damage to the habitat, and I have concerns.
I don't know, though, if that could be our consideration necessarily, since that was already approved wetlands lines in regards to the subdivision itself. And so I don't think that necessarily can be used for this specific application since the site plan. I hear you.
Yeah,
Just
it's a
for
concern
clarification.
to bring into my.
Yeah, I
Christine?
understand.
Thank you. I would say, though, the argument is if we're increasing density, we're
Mm.
then thereby changing the environment,
Right.
once again, and so that's why it's here. I echo Commissioner Tedesco in that my concern with this, I'm not so quick to move on it, is the density. You know, it's not exactly what we were first approached with, which we took a lot of time with. And I went through the minutes tonight, and a lot of our concerns did surround habitat at that time. And I regrettably should have echoed more of Commissioner Clock during that time of what was said regarding that habitat. So now here I am, you know, here we are again at this, another bite at the apple, if you will. Commissioner Hammersley is not here tonight, but remembering him. Another bite at the apple is the sense that, you know, we have another chance here to kind of prevent that increased density and further encroachment on that habitat, in my opinion. Now, I know that that can't be our finality in any kind of sense, but it does take into consideration the overall safety of the eco-environment there. So that's, I'm on the fence, pun intended. I don't, I'm not sure at this time. I'd love to hear my fellow commissioners a bit more.
Anything else?
Just for clarification, the National Diversity Database isn't only in wetlands, it covers upland areas. I just wanted to clarify.
Thank you, Dave. That's so helpful to know.
Okay. We have a motion?
That's a question. Okay, so we're considering, they can already put a detached garage, correct? Of a certain square
If
footage.
Mr. Chairman, 1,092 square feet is the total that's allowed. So let me just grab the memo, just so you know exactly how much they're over, or proposing to be over. Have it.
That's actually a good point.
Okay, so existing is 766, okay, on the house. So I'll let Jim do this as the engineer. It's 1,092 minus the 766 is what they'd be allowed just under a zoning permit. So they're asking for 506 above it. So,
Okay. So really, we're talking about 506 square feet is what we're talking about.
of the 32 by 26, so if they cut it in half, say that they could have that.
Correct. Something can go there. We're talking about the size. So just to put everything in perspective.
That's a great perspective.
Yeah.
That's actually a great perspective.
So
Okay.
it'd be a one-car garage instead of a two-car garage.
Yeah, so, I mean,
Correct.
to your point is, they could put 500, whatever square feet, my math is bad too, without ever coming here, they came to us for an additional 500 square feet. Right?
226 is what they'd be
226.
allowed without the special permit. And as of right, they could do a shed, a pool house, a playhouse, wood storage shed.
They could do it without even asking.
226 without asking.
226 without asking.
But excuse me, a pool house and a two-car detached garage are different sizes, like.
No, I'm saying for outbuildings, just in general. So
yeah.
you're considering lot coverage in the regulations, that's what they're allowed.
Yeah.
But since it's a garage, that's where it kicks in because it's oversized for garage spaces. They could still have that amount of space roughly for the lot coverage, whether it's an addition to the house, they could have a very big addition to the house as long as they're under that 20%. So they could do a huge covered patio, meet the setbacks, and still, be within the regulations.
Got it?
Okay, so considering that, I would make a motion to approve the special permit.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I wasn't going to because of all things discussion, but I think the arithmetic in the talk by staff in terms of coverage and everything, I'm tending to agree with Jen, so I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, Dave, please call the roll.
Commissioner Tedesco,
No.
Commissioner Volpe,
No.
Commissioner Clark,
Yes.
Commissioner Wowski,
No.
Commissioner Coviello,
Yes.
Commissioner Santiago.
Yes.
And Acting Chair Salkin.
Yes. So it passes 5-2.
4-3.
4-3. So we, just enough. Okay,
Good discussion.
yep,
Same as on the original.
No, good, yeah, good.
okay. Item E, we were going to table that.
Yeah, move to table SBU 678.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? We are table item E. Item F, request for renewal of existing registration of regulated activities in the Aquifer Protection Area, 474 Mulberry Street.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is the state maintenance facility. They're in the aquifer protection area, so they renew their registration every couple of years, standard.
Standard request. Okay. Have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Steve, motion to approve. Second?
I'll second.
Christina, second. Discussion? Hearing none, Dave, please call the roll.
Commissioner Tedesco,
Yes.
Commissioner Volpe,
Yes.
Commissioner Clark,
Yes.
Commissioner Wowski,
Yes.
Commissioner Coviello,
Yes.
Commissioner Santiago.
Yes.
And Acting Chair Salkin.
Yes, 7-0. Approved. That's the end of the business meeting. Do we have anything on administrative items?
No, Mr. Chairman, I don't.
Any new applications?
We'll have a few.
Do we want to know?
It's every day you ask, it'll be a yes, we will.
By a few, is it like 2 or like 4?
Or 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, how late we staying?
Between 2 and 30.
Thanks.
2 and 30.
Thanks.
Okay.
That's a ballpark.
All right, anything else?
Make a
Motion to adjourn? Okay, Steve, second, Christina?
Jen.
Jen? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed?